the security dialogue.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Like I indicated last week that, the topic for discussion, we couldn't exhaust it. And so we bring you the concluding part this week on the topic impact of conflict on national security. And I have here in the studio Dr. Festus Kofi Obin. A perfect and a wonderful gentleman who took us through issues of conflict for us to understand what it means. He talked about the levels of conflicts and mentioned intra-personal conflict, inter- and intrapersonal, intergroup and intragroup, and all of that. He also indicated some of the drivers that causes some of these conflicts. For instance, when we talk about issues of injustice, we talk about inequity and inequality in our society. He made mention of vigilantism and political patronage and all of that. In this concluding part, we want to find out, some of the real issues, that we can relate to when it comes to Ghana and when it comes to security, because you also indicated that security is about the protection that we give to people. So how are people protected so that they don't feel that internal or inter sense of conflict that we spoke about on the previous program? Yeah.
Okay, so Ghana currently, one of the biggest security challenges is the human security aspects of security, which we mostly don't talk about, because those are the threats that affect people. All right. And when you talk about human security, we are talking about the economic issues.
Okay.
Since the outbreak of COVID, people have lost their livelihoods, people have lost their jobs. There's so much hardship within the system. And so people's economic status has really dwindled.
Okay.
And so there is that dimension of the human security. You also talk about issues of personal security. In recent times, we've seen a lot of crimes happening, sometimes in broad daylight, demonstrating the boldness with which these criminals are operating these days. We've seen armed robbery attacks in people's homes. We've even seen people stealing the kind of things that in the past you would not expect them to steal, like these things that we put on gutters.
Covet. Okay.
People are stealing them. Wow. And that should tell you the hunger in the system. So apart from crime, you can also talk about issues of community security.
Okay.
And here we are talking about ethnic conflicts.
Okay.
We are talking about the threat of vigilant extremism.
Okay.
Violent extremism.
Okay.
If you go to the northern part of the country, and especially the border areas, they are experiencing most of these threats from violent extremist groups that are operating within the sub-region. All right, so those threats are also there. Then you can also talk about the environment.
Okay, but Doc, before we even move on that, let's look at this, and I think it's a very common phenomenon or example that is most often referred to, that there's a very huge gap between the north and then the south. And this in itself contributes to most of the things that we are seeing. At the levels of maybe economic issues and all of that. Why that? Because we also know that there's a lot of, in terms of natural resources and all those kinds. So why this such a widening gap between the north and the south in terms of economic development and all of that, which makes such, areas prone to the violent extremism that you talked about?
Yeah. I think that in practical terms, the disparity itself does not create conflict.
Okay.
It is when it is intertwined with issues of inequality,
Okay.
injustice,
Okay.
poverty,
Okay.
unemployment. That is when it becomes a problem
Okay.
for issues of conflict. All right, but I think that over the years, the government has tried as much as possible to invest a lot in the northern part of the country. You remember we had SADA.
Yeah.
We also had, when this current administration came, they had this northern development program.
Yeah.
Some at the north, some at the middle belt, some at the south, the coastal and all that.
Yeah.
So there have been a lot of efforts in terms of bridging this gap.
Okay.
But, you know, in Ghana, most of our development activities, most of our institutions are centered in the south.
Okay.
And so everybody wants to move from other parts of the country to come to the south.
Central point.
So whilst you are investing, especially in the human resource, when they finish, they come back to the south. They don't go back to develop those places. It also, it's like you are trying to solve a problem, but in trying to solve it, the people you are helping are not staying, but they are also coming to the capital to find greener pastures. You know, so you invest, by the end of the day, the investment doesn't stay. The investment comes down, I mean, to the south. Look at how many people from the north who are in the south, who, after whatever, getting employment, getting good source of, I mean, income. Look at how many of them have gone back to help develop the place. You see, so despite the investment over the years, there are still, I mean, challenges because you can't deal with it within 5 years or 2 years or something. There are structural problems that you need to have long-term development plans to deal with. You see, but the issues of conflict has also not helped in terms of the kind of investment that they should even have.
So I want to also find out, because I mean, research has also indicated that when there is overpopulation in itself, it means also that the resources within that area might not reach these people. Can we align it or relate it with the fact that it also contributes to the kind of conflict that we experience?
In terms of the population?
I mean, in terms of, because as most of the people are moving to, let's say, the central point where we feel that this is where we can more or less achieve our aims and objectives, would that in itself create some level of conflict that can affect national security?
Yes.
How is that?
Yes, because when people move towards one particular point, there's competition. All right, sometimes competition over the scarce resources. So there's competition over employment opportunities. There's competition over natural resources like land. You see a lot of land conflicts with these land guards all over the place because people want land to build. People want land to farm. And because of the competition, it intensifies the kind of problems that you have. You know, then it creates urban poor. You see that there have been some statistics that indicate that some of the crimes that happen actually emanate from the people in the urban poor areas, the squatters and all that, because most of them don't have source of livelihoods. And so some, not all. And that is also not to say that people in East Legon or West Legon or Adjingano are not involved in crime. all right? But it creates that.
Yeah.
You see, that rural-urban
Yeah.
migration,
Yeah.
it put a lot of pressure on the social amenities.
Okay.
And by doing that, it also creates inter and sometimes group, kinds of conflicts that you find.
Yeah.
You know, so the population dynamics also is quite key.
Okay.
You know, in terms of how it even leads to crime.
Okay.
Within the urban centers.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'm sure is one thing that we'll have to take a very critical look at it, so that we are able to help these young ones, or help the people or the populace to be able to understand some of the investment that are being done, and why the reason why they should even be there to take up the challenge to contribute to the national development.
Yeah.
I think it's a fantastic lesson. But I want us to look at of course, Ghana is not living in isolation, or the country is not situated in isolation. We have neighboring countries, and we join other bodies like the AU and all that. And you have done a lot of work when it comes to the AU security architecture and some of the issues that have popped up and all of that. So when we link some of these things that we're talking about, how do we, in terms of the security architecture, what are some of the things that we need to look out for? As we move towards looking at measures to prevent, some of these inadequacies that we have talked about, so far as security is concerned in relation to conflict.
Okay. I think one of the things we need to look at is early warning. Okay. Because some of these conflicts, before they erupt, there are early warning signs, which most of the time we don't pay particular attention to. Okay. So by the time we realize the thing has happened, and we have to now go back to deal with it. So early warning and early response is quite critical in terms of dealing with these conflicts. Then the state need to involve citizens, civil society, the media, in terms of conflict prevention and peace building. You see, most of the time you see that when it comes to security, it's as if it is only in the purview of the state, the police, the military. But citizens also have a role to play.
Don't you think that it is how probably the state-centric nature of it, because then we're always looking at military, across the globe. Yeah,
and the state has a role to play in terms of disorienting or orienting citizens about the fact that security is a collaborative endeavor. Government cannot do it alone. Police cannot do it alone, because police is not everywhere. In some places in Ghana, you don't have any police station.
Yeah, it's true.
It's a traditional system that operates. So if you don't involve them in the security architecture, how do you then intend to deal with security in places where you have no geographical reach? So involvement of the people is quite key. Then we also need to understand that the police and the military, they are not trained to deal with the root causes of conflicts. The police doesn't deal with socioeconomic issues, unemployment. It's not their job. You see? So if you deploy police and military to an area, you should know that
we are doing a lot of harm to ourselves
it's a temporary solution that you are making. You need to go beyond the police deployment to actually address the root causes of the problem. Sometimes there are issues of justice. People have had human rights violations, they want justice. Sometimes it's issues of dialogue. You bring the National Peace Council in. Sometimes there are issues of economic. You bring the Ministry of Finance, Agriculture, all those within a composite approach. So we shouldn't think that only deploying the police, military will solve the problem. It's just temporary. All right. Then we also need to look at issues of arms, small arms and light weapons. We need to really take a very particular look at that, because the entire sub-region is awash with arms. So because Cote d'Ivoire, there was issues there.
Yeah.
Burkina Faso, there's a problem ongoing there. Togo, they had their own political challenges. So you see that all the countries that have surrounded us. Oh, I mean,
I mean, let's because
in terms of safety,
yeah.
I mean, we are not 100% safe.
Okay.
You know, but I think that so far, some of the measures that the government has put in place in terms of securing the borders has been commendable. I mean, doing joint operations through the Accra Initiative with our neighboring counterparts. I mean, has saved us. There are a lot of things that they do which doesn't come to the public domain. So sometimes
is that the reason why because when we say security and there's a component of maybe secret or securing in such a way that I don't want people to. Is that the reason?
You see, information.
Yeah.
Information, how you deal with information is very important when it comes to security. There are some information you shouldn't have to put it out there because it will create panic.
Okay.
It will create a lot of fear.
Okay.
And that is also a security issue. You see, imagine that there's the police have a press conference and say that, oh, yesterday we arrested about 3 people who wanted to bomb the Accra Mall.
That one, nobody will even want to.
Nobody will go out.
The country will be in chaos.
That's it. You know, so there are times that you need to look at the period within which you relay certain information. Yeah. So there are a lot of things that go behind the scenes that you and I do not hear. So I've been to a number of countries and I can tell you that our security actors, they are one of the professional actors in the region. But
is it something that is very concrete? Because you know, these days our security apparatus have come under so much criticisms, so much pressure, and all of that. With, I mean, the leadership style and all of those things.
And I'll tell you why.
But people do not really see what you are talking about in terms of the confidence level that we used to have in this.
And I'll tell you why. It's because there's so much interferences in the work of the police.
I mean,
also internally within the police.
So no, this interferences. Where would they? Because I mean, you have a mandate and you are supposed to work your way out the mandate I've given you. Where from these interferences that?
Okay. So you see, the legal frameworks that we have, the police has an oversight body. Okay. The IGP is appointed by the president. All right. Within the police and even the military and the other sister agencies, you get to a particular position, you are at the mercy of the politicians to promote you.
Dog. I mean, this discussion is so fascinating. It's so enjoyable. I mean, I'm really soaked into it. But you see, I think time is not that on our side, and so I will pick your final words, and then to the viewers out there, what they are also supposed to do to also contribute to that piece that we are all talking about. Okay.
So I want to say that our security agencies cannot do it alone. Yes, there are challenges, there are problems, but we need to help them to secure us. Okay. Because if Ghana is in flames, all of us will be affected. Okay. So whatever we can do as a nation, as people.
Some of the very specific things that
provide information.
Provide information, so information sharing to the people.
Provide information to the appropriate security agencies when you come across one, because in security provision, intelligence is very important. So contribute in terms of information sharing.
So are you talking about something like, for instance, citizen, in journalism terms, they call them citizen journalists, journalists. So this one, maybe citizen policing, sort of, so that within the community, if you see some of these things, you can. But there are people who sometimes feel that after they have shared the information, sometimes it is not managed well, and then they tend to even attack them and all that. So these days they are afraid. What would you say to all of that?
So that is why the states, because it's a two-way thing.
Okay.
So the state should also have mechanisms that protect the safety and security of informants.
Okay.
Because without that, people will not have the trust, and people will not have the confidence to share those information with the police or whichever agency is involved. And that's why people should be assured of their safety and security before they share.
Okay, Doc. Now,
the last, I want to make this point also as well.
Yeah.
We need to give constructive criticism to the security agencies when they are at fault. All right. We should rather criticize and also encourage. But most of the time, we tend to only criticize them, and that doesn't affect their morale because a lot of them are making sacrifices. You know, so we need to criticize, but also encourage when they have done a good job.
What would you say to, for instance, traditional authorities? And here, when I say traditional authorities, I want to look at the Queen Mothers, because I personally feel that when women are involved in resolving conflicts, it heals or it solves faster. So at the traditional level, what are they supposed to do? At the religious level, I mean, when we mount the pulpit, and of course, I mean, here at MTA International, this is, I mean, one of the fantastic programs that we have put together, talking about security, conflict, peace, in order to contribute to the general effort. But specifically to these groupings, what are they also supposed to do? Okay.
So I'll start with the traditional authorities. You know, people respect their traditional authorities even more than sometimes even the president.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that one is a fact.
Or the MP, or the DC and all that. That shows the kind of power that they have. Okay. You know, imagine...
Have they not been compromised?
Yes, there are challenges with their system as well. But I think some of them also still have the dignity that comes with their position. You know, there are some who have been compromised, but there are equally also good people out there who people still respect. So sometimes when there's a need to speak out, they need to come out. Behind the scene, they can call people into order, because people come from communities before they become who they are. So they have some kind of influence over them. The religious authorities, the same kind of power that they also possess. In preaching, we need to preach about non-violent means of dealing with our problem. But also within the religious setup, there are also intra-faith and interfaith issues. We need to deal with that before you can deal with other people's own. All right? So we need to also try to promote the use of non-violent means of dealing. So dialogue,
touch on
mediation,
that, want to,
negotiations. You know, it's every issue that you want to solve it peacefully. You use dialogue or mediation. You know, instead of using violence. So we should promote that, the peace education. It has to sync well with the congregation and with the people. And if we do that over time, you will see that people will not use violence as the first measure in dealing with their problems, but they will look at the consequences of their actions and employ strategies that will promote relationship, bring harmony, instead of strategies that will create violence or conflict between people. You know, so the traditional, religious, and especially the Queen Mothers as well, there are a number of issues relating to women that they can also tackle from that angle. But they can also tackle the issues relating to the men.
Because
as well.
Someone told me that before a man goes to war, definitely hatching that idea. I mean, if the wife can have a fair idea, so directly or indirectly,
they play a very
play
critical
a
role.
very critical
Yes.
role.
So the queen mothers are very, very, very important.
Wow.
Very, very. Just like mothers.
Do you think we are really?
We are not. We have not utilized them much. We've mostly, because of the traditional setup also, it has tended to kind of, the chiefs have overshadowed them. But I know some of them do quite good job within their communities.
I know one person that, I mean, I'm sure very soon I'll bring her here, is Mama Gan of the Alavanyo tradition. I mean, she's a wonderful queen mother doing a lot of works and all of that. So, Mama Gan, we greet you and we greet all our women out there. I mean,
so some of them are doing a very good job, you know, but we should encourage them and support them to do more, especially at the national level. You know, because if you remember, what led to the Accra Peace Agreement when the conflict in Liberia was happening, it was the women who forced Chastela and the other warring factions to come to a negotiated settlement to say that enough is enough. It's either you sign the agreement or will not allow you to have your peace. So it was the women who caused that agreement to be signed. So they are very powerful, and we need to encourage them to do more.
We want to thank Dr. Festus Obin for this wonderful insight and the last portions of his submission that dwells on women. Of course, I mean, the Quran is very emphatic when it talks about women, that heaven lies under the feet of mothers. And so there's nothing that we can do without involving our women. All we need to do is to empower them, encourage them, support them, both at the personal level, community level, family level, national, regional, and international level, for them to contribute. Because when they are with us, they are able to make things heal faster and faster. We can't say much. I want to thank the technical team of producers, the cameramen, the sound engineers here at MTA International on this concluding part on the topic, impact of conflict on national security. I mean, we've been told what causes conflict and what we are supposed to do. And I gave you a very profound Quranic chapter to support the idea that we all need to be each other's keeper. We need to be promoters of peace than to be perpetrators of conflict. And that will bring us to the point where we can have our national development so that you and I can enjoy the resources available to us. And especially when we talk about this, we also want to talk about the youth, that you need to, as a matter of importance, stay away from trouble. Don't avail yourself to radicalism and issues of violent extremism and all of that. So this is where we draw the curtains on the concluding part of this edition. Once again, I had Dr. Festus Kofi Obin from the West African Network for Peace Building. He is the regional coordinator in charge of research and capacity building. And I must also say that as part of the security dialogue plans, very soon we'll have forums where we can again bring all these experts together, and then we can have one-on-one with you, the viewers, because we don't want to leave you, the viewers, out there in this journey of contributing to the peace in the world, and most especially in Ghana. Thank you. This has been your host, Sadiq Edichum, on the Security Dialogue on Muslim Television and Media. Until we meet again, same time next week, is Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.